Okay, so many times you've heard game masters and storytellers give tips and techniques and tricks on how to do their job, and almost always it's forthtelling. They are presenting things, and I'm guilty of this as well. Often I will tell you what to do or what works for me, and I'm not doing a lot to show you what really goes on. So I want to talk today about what it's like to be behind the scenes. What do you have to actually bring to the table to be a competent game master and storyteller? So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the idea of being familiar with the lore. If you're going to tell a story, by golly, you should know the ins and outs of the story. To some person's mindset, that means you have to memorize pages and pages of text, and I would say to you, no, just become familiar enough with it so that when you go to look at the notes on it, it takes just a mere second or two to pick up the pieces. One of the reasons why you want this kind of familiarity is that that lends itself to believability. If you don't know what you're talking about, the players are not going to feel confident to engage with it, and therefore you would leave yourself with a lot of confusion and perhaps misdirection by players who either don't know what they're doing or are intentionally sandbagging or gaslighting you because they want manipulation of the game, and the only way they can do that is if they know the system and the lore better than you do. That means you need to have at least some core competency with the rule set. Now, most game masters have studied the guidebooks on how to be a game master. Am I looking at the right camera? I'm not. I'm supposed to be looking up here. Aha! That explains why I was feeling like somebody was staring down at me. All right. So this idea is that you need to have competency with the rule set. If you do not know what you are talking about when it comes to the rules of the game, the players are also going to feel uncertain and perhaps step up and somewhat guide the game from the inside, and that can be dangerous. That also means that at the beginning of your sessions, you need to have a pretty good idea of where the scene is going to be established, which means you need to have a really strong OSSF update. In this case, OSSF stands for Our Story So Far. And when you have a solid understanding of what's going on, where the players are, what the action was leading to in the last episode, the continuity that the players yearn and desire and need to be able to play within the realm becomes easier. They actually can put their feet down on what's going on because they know that you're actually going to be there to bolster them and to help the story get to where you wanted to go with it. Another thing that happens is you need to have an idea of a projected encounter outline. What are you going to do? And I'll be completely candid. In my case, as long as I've been doing it, I've gotten to the point where I understand the balance of what's going on. And so as long as our story so far has been nice and solid and concise, then I can progress the story whichever direction I wanted to go on the fly. And that's not always the best, not always the easiest process. As a matter of fact, you may need to have notes and a checklist and everything so that the adventure will go as you sort of hope for. Now, granted, the players are going to have actions that are going to drive the direction completely away from where you focused or where you plan to go. So just allow that their actions are going to do that and learn how to ride the directional wave, if you will, of what the players bring to the table. And make sure also that you have planned for each of the players to have an equitable amount of playtime. If you are going to pontificate and you're going to extol the virtues of a situation, you are going to be reducing your players' interest, whereas if you're allowing them to actually have to discover the lore, then they feel the ownership of it and feel the value of their continuation in the game session. And so by realizing you've got to balance this and track this on the fly as you're gaming, find ways to do so, whether it be a checklist of the characters or as I mentioned before, the Game Master screen that I utilize has a slit across the top that allows you to put in markers to indicate who is still to come in the turn and things like that. So it makes it easier to keep track of that way. But you also need to be able to progress the story in player terms. If all you're doing is resolving conflict, you're not giving the players anything of their needs for advancement. If in the other case you're actually progressing the story directly in association with what the players are doing, you're going to give the feeling of ownership, the feeling of belonging to the players in very real player terms, so that they will feel the progress and help push the progress of the story forward. When you are talking about personas, of course, you will need to make sure that you have a means and a methodology for providing rewards and assets to the players as they progress in the story. If there are things that they would like to accomplish that they've mentioned in passing, afford them opportunities to put their toes in the water in the areas of those particular skills and advancements. One of the easiest way to do this is to recognize what the players are wanting in the things that they say, because this allows for a fluid transition. And one of the main things that players look for in a campaign is fluidity, community, and continuity. They want to know the story is going to continue week over week, that they're going to have a place in it, and that they can make changes on the fly and you'll roll with them. So these are some of the keys to being able to put on a game, and this is kind of what you see as a game master from behind the scenes, tracking all these different elements as you progress to make sure that the players stay included in the story as well.